Hello and welcome to the Skycast, this Fantasy Football Scouts Sky, a fantasy football version of the regular Scoutcast. It's finally arrived, the final game week of the season. My name is Joe and today I'm joined by Luke to look at our transfers, if we've got any left, and captaincy plans for game week 51, as well as any lessons we may have learned during this very tricky season. Welcome Luke, how are you?
All right, I'm all right. I'm a little bit late, a little bit tired. Stayed up very, very late for work last night, but my head's in the game. Just got out, got the coffee ready to go,
Yeah.
and try and attack the game week. See what we can
Okay,
come up with.
right, yeah, we'll see. Hopefully, we can give everyone a bit of a helping hand as the Sky season finishes. So, what we'll do is, as usual, we'll put our team pictures up. So, we've got a sort of a main team and a sort of a B team, and we'll see how they're going. So, I'll put Luke's up first. So, for the benefit of the podcast listeners, you've got Edison, Van Dijk, and Alexander Arnold, and Aurier, who amazingly keeps playing, and got a clean sheet in the last match, considering the personal issues he's going through. In this 3-4-3, you've got De Bruyne, Foden as a great backup there, Sarr, Fernandez, Ings, Martial, and Calvert-Lewin. And in your sort of second team, Sionju is still there. With his red flag, Edison, Van Dijk, Gomez. And this is a 3-5-2. You've got De Bruyne, St. Maximum, Sarr, Lacello rather, who's doing ever so well and actually playing and still looking like a really great asset. Fernandez, Ings, and Jimenez. So, what's the transfer situation like in either of these teams? And any plans really for transfers if you have any left?
Yeah, the transfer situation is dire. There is now zero in both
Ah,
teams.
there we go.
Despite me really wanting to save it for the last day, I basically didn't have Danny Ings, who is now in both the teams, as you can
Yeah.
see, for yesterday. And I just decided that covering that game rather than going with the Aurea or the Lo Celso, which, to be fair, in the Aurea team obviously wouldn't have worked out too bad in the end. That would have been okay. But the other team, Soyuncu got injured, so I didn't even really have a cap. I mean, I had Lo Celso, but he's not a particularly great captain. And I just decided that Danny Ings was going to be so heavily owned. It's such a great game for him, obviously chasing the Golden Boot. We've discussed it quite a bit on the pod, haven't we? So I thought I'm going to have to get him as my final move, because not only has he got that game, then on the final day he's got another potentially very good game. He's at home at least, and still going for that Golden Boot. So I felt like that was a good use of it. It gives me the captain. It increases my captain on that day by a much better captain on that day. And it kind of worked, didn't it? He got a goal and then he missed the penalty, so it wasn't what I'd hoped for, but at the same time it kept me level pegging. So I'm out of transfers now, unfortunately. And believe me, if I could, I would change probably about 7 or 8 players from my teams. But this is part of the lessons learned that we'll get to at the end. That I mean, when mixed with the pandemic, obviously hasn't helped with the individual days. Have just thrown a much greater need for transfers than we usually would have had. But yeah, so I'm kind of, that's where I'm at now. I don't really have any options. Just gonna see what goes on. I hope most of my players will play on the final day, but I guess we're gonna have to wait for press conferences and stuff. So I don't really have any plans. Sorry, Joe.
No, that's
see
fine.
if you've got any.
But in terms of captaincy as well, so we've got a few matches left. So this is being recorded on the Monday. So game week 50 is still going on, and so obviously game week 51 is the focus here. But obviously you've got some quite good captaincy options here. You spoke about the Monday, which is tonight, that this is quite a good time for a differential captain. So Everton against Sheffield United could be. Brighton against Newcastle, some maximum could be if he was fit and ready to go. Trossard was another that's been mentioned for Brighton. Could be an interesting differential for today. But obviously a lot of people will be going for Jimenez and a Sheffield United defender. But there could be some traction there in your Calvert-Lewin, I think, and those that have Richarlison as well. I think there could be some gains to be made there. And of course Tuesday we've got City against Watford, Villa against Arsenal. I think that could be, I mean, obviously City are the key ones there, but if anyone's chasing and they want to get Aubameyang in, who we'll speak about a bit later, This could be a good time to bring Aubameyang in. If you think that it's going to be hard to predict who in the City ranks is going to score the points, if you think Aubameyang is going to play, and he's against Villa, and he's just scored 2 goals against arguably the second best team in the country, City, then it could be a move there if you've got any transfers left and you've got the money to do so. And then on the Wednesday you've got Manchester United against West Ham, Liverpool against Chelsea. And it's looking really good for your teams, in fact, because you've got Martial there, and then so I think if you've got Fernandes in one team, but in the other team with Martial there, that gives a nice alternative captain. And Fernandes is looking a bit tired. I mean,
he still manages to get the points, though, doesn't he?
Still got. If the FA Cup game was in Sky in our fantasy game, then yeah, he scored a penalty, so he would have scored a goal, would have got good points on the board. But nevertheless, in open play, I think Martial, since he was rested in the FA Cup, I think he's a really good bet, and one I would be considering bringing in the team where I do have a transfer or 2 left. But yeah, so we'll come to captains for game week 51, but I'll just quickly put my team up because they're a bit different. Now I've got my team 1 is trucking along as it has been. It's in the top 400 now, so it's sort of going up in dozens or hundreds. It's not going up to the first, or it's not in the top 10 or anything. So it's just not really moving. And this is the one where I have no transfers left. So this one has Henderson, Van Dijk, Alexander-Arnold, Tarkowski, who rather boringly was my last ever transfer for this season in this team, De Bruyne, Foden, Pulisic, Sarr, Fernandes, Ings and Jimenez. So my captains there have been... I'm quite pleased I got Tarkowski, and at least I got 14 points from him. Sarr obviously is a rubbish captain, got me the blank, and Ings, yeah, I captained as well. But I'm quite happy with that team. I would like it to be better. I would love to have 1 or 2 transfers left for this to freshen it up a bit. Sarr is just it's not really happening for this team. You know, most you can get is an assist. But it's my B team that I'm more excited about, really, because this is the one where I've had a few transfers.
Fun.
Yeah, I can have some fun with this one. I can have some I've had, you know, during the lockdown, I've had, you know, a bit less than 10 transfers left, and I've been using them. And this is something we'll discuss a bit later to get high impact players in, high impact captains in. So you can see this one has Pope, Van Dijk, Alexander-Arnold and Baldock. That's the boring bit. And then you've got De Bruyne, Foden, Antonio, Fernandes, Giroud, Kane and Ings. So you can see what I've been doing there the last few weeks. So I've got Antonio in, and he keeps being a great captain option. I've got Giroud in for his captaincy day a little while ago, and that worked out. I've got Kane, who's got me 34 points so far. Ings is still there, and I've got Foden in as a backup to Kevin De Bruyne. But this one, I've got 2 transfers left, so I've gone from about 4 or 5k into the top 1k finally for this one, and that was my aim for this, and I didn't think I would achieve it. So my aim for this is just to stay in the top 1k, because for me that's like a personal achievement. It won't mean anything to anyone else, but for me to get this team from nowhere to respectability was the sort of aim. And so I've got 2 transfers left, and I actually was meant to do a transfer last week but forgot because I was recording the Scoutcast. I was going to do Giroud after he played to Martial and captain him, and I didn't. And so
rookie stuff, Joe. Rookie stuff.
I know, but I was recording the Scoutcast at the time, and
no excuse. No
and I was
excuse.
thinking, oh no, I can't. There's too many buttons to press. So I thought, I'll leave it. So I could still do Giroud to Martial move. I've got 2 transfers left: Giroud to Martial and captain him. I think that's a nice little alternative captain there to Fernandes. But I kind of like going into the final day with 2 transfers because I can do it what I want then. And that means somewhere, if some people aren't playing or want to just really go for it, I could get Aubameyang in as well as Kane somehow. And all these things are possible with 2 transfers. So I kind of like the flexibility of that, and I think I might leave it. And to be honest, Fernandes is not a bad captaincy, is he, for Manchester United?
No.
So
And he's done really well with the Kane one, to be fair, because
yeah,
the period since the restart, it's not looked like he's been, well, he's looked like his previous self for like the last sort of 2 years, where he hasn't been quite up to the speed. But I didn't see the game the other day, but apparently he looked very, very much back. At least a few people said he did. I mean, up 2 goals suggests he might be.
Is the stats
So yeah, well
say,
played on that one.
Yeah, and I mean that one there, but I think that shows with this team that what you can do if you've got transfers left in spare when no one else has. Because why this has advanced up the ranks is not necessarily, I mean, it's helped having like Kane as captain or Antonio as captain, but what's helped is that people like my A team with no transfers left, they can't compete with it. I can't compete with my rubbish team, so the rubbish team carries on, and only I will care by the end. But nevertheless, I think other people will care about their own B teams, and I think it's a nice.
I think if I was you, though, I would be tempted to. I mean, Aubameyang does look good, but obviously we don't really know. Considering he played the semi-final and he has been benched once, potentially he might miss this one. But I guess we're not going to know that until we see. I think are they the first game for the lineups? I can't remember. I think they might be, aren't they, on that day?
Yeah.
Oh no, they're not. They're 8:15.
Oh no, it's 8:15. Yeah, sorry.
Yeah, so we're not going to know, but hopefully we'll get a sort of a bit of information as to whether we play or not. But if not, I think the 2 subs, as we've said multiple times, on the final day for whoever's in Man City's team for that final game does just look great, just to get 2 Man City players in.
Yeah,
whoever might be starting.
Yeah,
David Silva +1 probably.
David Silva, Jesus, Sterling. I don't own any of them. I could do. I feel though I want to captain Kane that day, not a City asset.
Okay.
And one of the reasons is with City, yes, they could completely hammer Norwich. They probably will, but I don't know who's going to get the mega haul. Will it be Sterling? Will it be De Bruyne? Will it be Foden? He can.
It'll be all of them probably.
And it'll be all of them. They'll all tick along. Meanwhile, with Spurs, it'll probably be Kane. With Arsenal, it'll probably be Aubameyang. And then you're talking,
I know what you mean.
And then you're talking man of the match, and it's the final. So I look at that, and I suppose that comes on to captains for game week 51. So let's have a look at 51 and the matches taking place. So we're lucky in Sky because these matches take place at 4:00 on a Sunday. Team sheets come out at 3:00. We can make transfers right up till 4:00. This is lovely. So we're going to know who's playing. So so you look at that, and then say, for sake of argument, KDB is benched. Then if you've got 1 or 2 transfers left, wow, you can really take advantage of that, because people like my A team I can't do anything about that. I just probably won't captain him, but I can't do anything else about it. So just going through the fixtures here: Arsenal against Watford, Aubameyang leaps out there. Burnley against Brighton. Possibly not for the captaincy, but a good matchup for Pope. Chelsea against Wolves, hard to judge. Palace against Spurs, Kane a good option. Everton against Bournemouth. Leicester against Manchester United. Manchester United, Leicester's defence looking awful, so Martial I think a good option there. Man City against Norwich, as we've discussed. Newcastle against Liverpool. Those with Salah, those with Mane. This could be a good one. I'm thinking about captaincy really for these. Southampton against Sheffield United, and then West Ham against Villa. Captaincy wise, none of those really appeal to me. But yeah, for you, I mean, who say all those you want to play are playing, and you get those team sheets in. Who have you got your eye on captaincy, and does it depend on sort of where you are in the rankings, that type of thing?
I mean, it certainly will on the final day. I think. If you see all the lineups and you see that Kevin De Bruyne is starting at home to Norwich, I still feel like he will be the most heavily captained player out of anyone, because his ownership is incredibly high. Nearly everyone should have had them in their team, the whole season. And I think, therefore, with the best game, I mean, it's a no-brainer, basically. Yeah. The only reason to go any different is to be different, I think. So when you're looking at your leagues, or if you're in the overall and you want to secure one of those top 5 places, which many of our viewers, there'll probably be a few out there that are in that sort of top 10 overall. You've got to consider that, I guess. Yeah. How else are you going to make up 20 points on your opponents? I mean, some of the teams you can see they're open, some of them you can't, but a lot of people will have worked out who the others have got depending on how many points they get on each individual days. You can very easily work it out if you want to, who they're most likely to have. And the average amount of transfers is incredibly low. I think it was below 1 or around that in the top 10. So there's a good chance that they probably can't really do much to change their team. So yeah, in those situations, I think, what does it matter? And if you're still going to be winning your mini leagues and you're not going to drop, I mean, you're sort of 60 points ahead or something stupid, then by all means, you've got to be different, haven't you? And Aubameyang obviously screams out there. Yeah. Watford have just lost their manager as well. There's no telling what that will do. I mean, you could say that maybe it will have the opposite effect on them. But considering we get to see a little preview of that versus Man City first, then that's quite good, I think, because if they're an absolute shambles against Man City, you would expect Arsenal would punish them. So Aubameyang is probably the standout and sort of next differential for me after a Man City player. And then I still really like the idea of Antonio, just because he's a midfielder playing up front and it's against Villa, and sort of the form he's in. If you've got him in your team, I mean, we've already seen you've got 62 points or whatever it was, and that's in part because he's been midfielder, so he just gets those extra points. So I do really like that. The other ones, I mean, like the likes of Kane, we know all the other players. We'll have to kind of just gauge it on the lineups. I mean, we might come to the final day and Palace have put out their entire reserve side just to see if the kids are doing good, and suddenly that might change things for you. We just don't know, to be honest. But those are sort of my three: Kevin De Bruyne, Aubameyang, and then probably Antonio as like a third sort of backup option that I kind of like.
I still like David Silva as a captain.
Oh, 100%. Yeah, when I say KDB, I basically mean Man City, and if Sterling's starting, if David Silva's playing, then he heavily stands out as well. The thing with Man City, I think I'm right in saying that after that game against Norwich, which is the 26th of July, their next game is the 7th of August. Is that right, in the Champions League?
It's the Champions League, because in their heads it would have been the FA Cup final, but it's not. So you would imagine the squad he's going to put out against Norwich and Watford is with that Champions League in mind. That's what they're going for. That's my
thinking. I think that exactly. It should. I mean, we've heard Pep talk about. It's impossible to predict Pep, but we've heard him talk about rhythm so often. And this is probably his only opportunity to get some sort of rhythm, because that's quite a large gap now. 26th of July to the 7th of August.
And the players know these next two matches. You're Phil Foden, your Man City player, another one, and you are playing for a place in that Real Madrid side, as in the team to face Real Madrid. And so that's motivation, because we're always looking for motivation at this time of the season. And that has to be, surely. It's those motivations.
So I would have thought he plays like their best team with maybe. I mean, I'd include David Silva in their best team, but maybe Pep doesn't. But plus him would be my thought process. At the end of the day, because this isn't Man City's final game of the season, perhaps David Silva plays another game that is his final game rather than this. But I still think he plays this one, to be honest with you. I'm pretty sure he will.
I think he does.
And I suppose the alternative view of this, just to throw it out there, would be: does he want to pick up an injury in a next to meaningless game when he's then got Real Madrid
as well?
Yeah. Does he want to play De Bruyne? He gets injured and then he doesn't have him for Real Madrid. I suppose you could look at it that way, but I don't think Pep thinks like that. I think everything he talks about is rhythm. Yeah. So I would just be surprised.
And I mean, those playing FPL don't have the luxury that we have. We know what the side will be, and we can make a decision. And that's why I'm minded to leave my two transfers, because of the flexibility. And as you were saying, there are other options there as well. So if my Man City guys are playing, then somehow I might look to get Aubameyang in as well. I just wanted to mention we had a couple of questions actually about this. So FPL Wilson, last transfer, final day punt, who to go for? Kane against Palace, Aubameyang. Perhaps Benny Blanco, one transfer left, initially planned on Kane to a City player, but is a good sneaky move to go to Aubameyang. So he's actually thinking of getting rid of Kane. Two good fixtures are more likely to start 2 games. So you're thinking about Aubameyang now. That move I was considering there, get him in for Villa. I think there's a slight risk there, and I think if you only got 1 or 2 transfers left, it would be really annoying to see Aubameyang benched against Villa, and you've just spent your precious transfer to get him back. But I just wanted to say about captaincy here, and about depending on where you are, chasing, consolidating. Aubameyang currently is in 10% of top 1k teams. So if you are going for a top 100 or trying to win it, or just trying to get as high as you can within the top 1k, Aubameyang captain final day would make sense, because he's only in 10% of teams. Huge differential. Kane is in 35% of top 1k teams, bit more, but nevertheless, that's 2/3 of teams in the top 1k do not have him. So if you can captain him, get him in and captain him, these are two great differentials. Mane is in 13.9% of top 1k sides. Newcastle currently, as far as I can tell from the injury list, don't have a defence at the moment. I'm not sure who. Maybe Bruce himself will get kitted up and be playing. But Mane at 13.9% is not in many sides still at the moment, and I think he could.
I think that's a very, very good way to do it, Joe. Yeah. Actually, that's what you want to be doing, is looking down those lists and see who are these explosive players with a good game that have got nobody in their team. And even if you don't think they're going to score as much as the likes of Kevin De Bruyne, which probably most won't, it's still worth just rolling the dice on the off chance that they do, because it can give you that big rise.
If you've got Kevin De Bruyne, you're getting half his points. Okay, you're not getting the double one, but your other player might get more, and the chances are your rivals do not own this other player, do not own Aubameyang or Mane. Martial, 21.5% of top 1k sides. So at the moment, 3/4 of the top 1k do not own him. So
that's very much to do with the fact that Martial's a forward in Sky, isn't it? Not anyone's got any place for him. It's quite expensive. Wasn't looking like a particularly good option compared to the likes of Rashford and Fernandes until his just ridiculous run of late. So that, I think that's why his numbers are kept down. If he's a midfielder, suddenly he's in 80% of teams, I think, straight away.
Exactly. And Leicester's defence, let's be fair to them, it's in tatters. Kane annihilated them, and Martial can do exactly the same. So another good option there, I think. So I hope that answers those questions there. We had a couple more questions about what we learned from the season. Anything different we would do to approach the game. So you've been playing this for a long time, and you've been, was it 4th, 3rd? Which, you've...
Yeah, I finished 4th overall before. Generally I've finished in and around the top 100 nearly every season I've played. There's been a few where I've sort of dropped out. In fact, last season, I think, I can't even remember last season. I think in the end I just hit around 100th place or something. I can't remember if I finished there.
So it's difficult to know what you've learned from this season.
Yeah.
Because...
this season's been dreadful, though, so I suppose it does help you a little bit.
But have there been... I know we've had the pandemic, the lockdown. We came back without an extra overhaul. That depended on how many transfers... Obviously, if we knew what was going to happen, we wouldn't have wasted transfers in January. We would have just saved everything up. But is there anything you've taken from this season that you might carry over to other seasons to, perhaps go higher than 4th?
Yeah, I think there's a couple of things. Yeah, I think basically these individual match days. I think I've spoke about this the other day. I think you just have to do everything you can to cover them. There's going to be the odd one that you can avoid, and obviously knowing which ones those are is very tricky. But generally, if it's a sort of a Burnley versus a Norwich, nobody's got any of these people. How much can they effectively hurt you? Yes, you could take a little punt and bring them in, and they might get you sort of 20, 30 points. But then you probably have to use another swap to get the person out. Was that really worth it? Probably not. But having said that, the vast majority of these this season have worked out. So I think from now on, I'm going to try as best as I can, unless it's that scenario I just discussed there, to cover. So I think I'm going to look to cover something around sort of 70 to 80% of them. Whereas this season, I probably went for more like sort of 40% of them, and often tried to keep those swaps. But what I did with those swaps, I can't tell you. I feel like I've used too many swaps on a lot of the time, sort of pointless midfield swaps where I'm still stuck in that mindset where midfield is the dominant position in Sky, and it had been for so many years. And I think over the last 2 years, we've been shown that it's really not now. Defenders have become ridiculously good. You can almost look at them the same as strikers and say the points potential on some of these guys is massive. So using some swaps in defence and attack is where you really want to spend your moves. If I'd have just left the likes of Mason Mount and these people who at periods were pretty good midfielders because they were so cheap and they did pretty well. Then they go for a poor period, then you find them swapping for another midfielder and another one, then you want to come back. It just seems like a waste of moves because their ceiling's not particularly high. So I feel like saving transfers, especially for the forwards, for the captain days, is a good move.
Yeah.
And you know, added to the fact that midfielders like Sterling and Mane were moved to the forward positions, just meant that midfielders just a dearth. So it's hard to judge now exactly what they'll do with that moving forward, whether they'll move those guys back to midfield or etc. etc. But if it's much the same and the rules are much the same, then you know, again, I went for Liverpool defence at the beginning of the season and Man City with Laporte and stuff. That was unfortunate with Laporte. Obviously, he got injured for most of the season. But we had sort of 15 games there at the start where Liverpool didn't keep a clean sheet. And I persisted by keeping them in my team for, you know, the first half of the season, you know, hell-bent on the fact that these guys are the best options. Now, it turned out they did, but I just reacted too slow to it. I feel like I should have moved those defenders on earlier, gained some points other places, because like I said, they're a prime position. I'm basically wasting a prime position there for half of the season. I should have moved away from them and then just come back to them later. And that would have been a better use of my swaps than swapping all these midfielders around. So, yeah, I just reiterate it, cover the captain days and spend my swaps in the premium defence and the attackers. And just one final note is, if there is a cheap striker out there that is doing well, don't be afraid to go to him. I think last season, and you could argue this season, Jimenez was incredibly cheap. And last season he was ridiculous. He scored all the time. But because he's that lower price bracket, you often wouldn't find yourself doing that, because then you'd have a load of money in the bank and then you didn't want to invest it rest of your teams and you couldn't get back to a premium. But that's the way I looked at it. So just get them in. Trust them. You know, it's hard to know who it's going to be. This season it was clearly Ings, and it was the same thing. I didn't move to him for most of the season, just not thinking that he could continue, thinking that I'd need all that money for the premium strikers, you know, putting in Sterling and stuff like that who weren't doing anything. So yeah, if another cheaper striker starts performing, don't be afraid to get them in. Forget the price element.
Yeah, I think so. I mean, I completely agree. And I think the difference between my A and B team in these final few weeks has shown me not just the benefits of keeping back those transfers for these final weeks, because most people will have used them. Most people who are really, really high up, say February, March time, they're high up partly because they possibly have used more transfers. So you can get an advantage on them by keeping them back for a surge at the end. But also, I think you're completely right about the single game days. So my A team, I can't do anything about. I couldn't do anything about Antonio. I can't. But in my B team, I have been able to. Nick Pope has been a good asset for me in my B team for exactly those single game week days. Burnley against whatever, Burnley clean sheet, save points. Suddenly you're looking at a 22 point haul from your captain, and he's just like a 6 point whatever keeper. So it's those kind of players. Henderson at Sheffield United, whoever's got him in, they've been doing really well. A Sheffield United defender, and it's, as you were saying, it's about looking at those premium places. So, you know, the likes of Alexander-Arnold or Van Dijk, and then looking at that and thinking, well, hang on, if I get a Sheffield United defender in over this period of good matches that are coming up, and they've got a couple of single game days or at least one, just put the captain on them, and who knows, you could end up with, you know, those extra points. And there's those extra points are the difference between top 1,000 and winning it and also, you know, not getting a very good rank at all and then getting somewhere near the top 5,000 or something, and that's the difference. So yeah, I completely agree. I also think as well, in terms of the different ways I'll play it, I think it's going to depend on the pricing. The other benefit of Sky is the pricing doesn't change. There's no price changes. So we'll know at the beginning of the season those types of strikers like Ings, and who knows about Leeds and whoever else is promoted, what assets they're going to have, strikers. We'll remember Burnley's Graham Alexander-Arnold. We might as well be Graham Alexander when he came up. Was on penalties, and he kept. But it was. We didn't really know that, but when Burnley were there, suddenly it's like, oh, we've got a great asset there. Suddenly you've got a goal-scoring defender, gold dust, and it's those types of players go for. See, I ignored for part of the season John Lundstrom because, you know, he wasn't listed as defender. He was listed as what he should be in the Sky game, a cheap midfielder, but he kept scoring, and he was a really good, for a period, a really good Sheffield United captaincy shout. But in my head, I kept ignoring him because I thought, oh, he's not a defender, so I'm not getting that benefit. But ignoring the fact that he was actually a scoring midfielder who was cheap. So it's those kinds of things. It's looking at that pricing early on. and seeing where you can avoid making transfers. So that, I like this final part of the season. Definitely enjoyed having more transfers, which sounds stupid, but
it's the efficient use of transfers, which often is only you only know whether it was an efficient in hindsight, unfortunately. But the efficient use of transfers is just, I mean, combined with obviously a little bit of luck, is obviously incredibly key. And spreading that over the course of a whole season, obviously you have a plan as to how many you want to use. And obviously we're a little bit more frivolous with them at the start, usually compared to the I am because I haven't got any left. And I do appreciate, for me, the pandemic really affected my transfer plan. For many, it will have done that. But ultimately, if you've used them a little bit more efficiently than I had, then I could have really risen up even more so in these last weeks. Because to be fair, a lot of my calls in terms of who I was going to captain on individual days have done very, very well. It's done good, and it's almost like this game's coming up. I pretty much know, or I'm confident that one of these guys this guy's going to do really well in this match. However, I can't move to him, and then he goes on and does well, and it's been really frustrating because it's like I couldn't even do the move. But so as ever, efficient use of the transfers, and I think you just have to bear that in mind, even right at the start. Pick the players like you said about we're going to know the prices. You know the prices from the start. You don't know who's going to be the best players for the season, but you can at least look and think, well, there's at least 3 or 4 players around that price bracket there that have got a very good chance of having a good season. So I need someone at that price bracket. I'm going to stick them in, and then at least I've got those swaps to go between those 2 or 3 people. I think that's helpful in FPL in all fantasy, to be honest, isn't it? But
if you can make that swap in one rather than have to make another one to free up money, that's another bonus there. So as you said, price points are good, obviously, in Sky. Just a final question, really. Lee Williams, who also asked us about what we've learned from the season, but he also asked what changes we'd make to the game. I mean, I've got one particular one, and more pertinent to you actually, having come fourth, is that I would like, as in FPL, some kind of career history in this.
That'd be great, yeah.
I've been in the top 100 once, but I can't even remember what year it was. And I still say to people, I got on top, well, anyone who plays Sky would care, but top 100 once. And but I'd like it to be in black and white there, and just have a look at the career history. I just think that would be an important thing, and there's lots of people watching this who are playing it, people like you, being in Dan Cox's case won it, but also other people who in the top 5, top 10, and it would be good to have that. But I don't know.
100%, I agree. There's every season you look at the top 100 and it's the same sort of 50 names with 50 new people every season. So there are at least 50 people out there who have finished in the top 100 every season virtually. And to have those career histories, there'd be some incredible people. I mean, I think of Nate, like you said Dan Cox straight away. There's loads of other people out there that I know are in certain groups, and their history would just be crazy to look at. It would be mental. So very much agree with that. For me, I think there's a couple of things. To be honest, I feel like man of the match should go. I feel like I don't think it will go because obviously it's the thing of the excitement, who got the points. There's more points to be had, but I just feel at this stage it's too subjective. 1 week it looks like it's been heavily an ownership pick. Whoever's the most owned, the person's just thrown it in there. 1 minute it looks like it's a stats pick. Suddenly it's a player you never expected would get man of the match. But then you look at the stats and you got like 36 interceptions or something. And you're like, okay, was that an Opta pick or something? Sometimes it's just widely off the mark. So I don't really like it because that just adds that element of luck. Now I think the way they sort of acknowledged that last season because they dropped it from 5 points to 3 points to almost say, we agree it's a bit ropey, but it won't hurt you as much now. It's just 3 points. I think that's not really a proper fix. I think just get rid of it entirely, or make it so it's some sort of system like FPL have got, where it's clear to everyone. FPL's not quite clear, but you know what I mean. They might lay it out right at the beginning. If your player gets the most points in this game, then he is the man of the match, for example, something like that. That would be a change. And also just another one is I think the balance still now has kind of moved away from midfield and has gone to forwards and defenders. So I'd like something to kind of readdress that. I think Sky got a little bit lucky because the season before this, the defenders, the Van Dijks of this world, the Laportes of this world, who just churn out 10 points every game they play virtually. And if they do concede, probably 5 points. I don't think that's right. I think that they need to do something about these passing centre-backs that just end up being ridiculous. So I think they should do something. Maybe raise the bar a little bit, but then that obviously affects everyone else who's never going to get anywhere near that. So I'm not really quite sure what the answer is there. But then I think there needs to be something. Either their prices need to be hiked, or they need to lift the tiers up a little bit, and then you're paying that premium basically to get the passing bonus. Which, to be fair, you don't get off many defenders at all, do you? It's pretty much Man United, Man City. You know, there's a few select few. Occasionally, Soyuncu was getting them before. The top team centre backs, basically. And I think it's just too powerful. I mean, Van Dijk's probably going to end up being the best player again for the second season in a row.
Almost feels like cheating, doesn't it? It's like you're just picking 10 players and Van Dijk.
Yeah, is that fantasy football? That's my question to you. I mean, when you think of fantasy football and you ask the person on the street, fantasy football, they're going to think of your Ronaldos, your Messis, your people up front, you know, your star players. And yeah, Van Dijk is a star player, but you don't think of a centre-back and think you put your captain armband on him and you leave him for the whole season and he ends up being probably the best pick over the course of the season. Not a big fan of that. I feel like something has to be done there.
Yeah, it's almost like he's broken the game, broken the scoring mechanism. Sometimes you get that, you know, a player comes along and they're just like, well, actually he's hitting all of those thresholds every game and yet he's priced like this. So you want to make it more of a game, more interesting. Van Dijk at 15 million would make it interesting. Put it that way.
Yeah, exactly. There's to be something. I don't want to go into a Liverpool game at home to, I don't know, Wolves and think, should I captain Salah here or should I captain Van Dijk? I don't think that's the decision I should be making. I think it should just be on Salah.
Yeah.
So the fact that the game's rules have set up in that way where probably Van Dijk will end up being the better pick if you made that choice 15 times out of 15, you'd probably be up on it rather than going Salah. I don't like that.
Yeah.
That might be a personal thing.
No, I agree. I think it's more about Van Dijk than any other defender there because, as you said, you need to make it more of a game. It's a game, and you need to make it a game, and you need to create decisions. And that decision about Van Dijk is 15 million. Do I want to pay 15 million for 10 points guaranteed every week? Well, then that's a decision to make. But do I want to pay 10 million or 11 million?
It's no decision.
Then it's no decision. You just get him in, and then you just pick 10 other blokes.
In fact, it then probably, if we were playing sensibly and not with our hearts, we then don't have Salah, like we've said, and then suddenly you've taken that asset out and you do it, and that's probably the way to have done it.
I've had Salah or Mane for I don't know when, way before lockdown, and I haven't missed them at all. But I should miss them. But yeah, in the meantime, been great hearing your thoughts, Luke, for the final game week of the season. Good luck to you, and good luck to all those listening and who've been watching us for this season so far. I really hope that your final game day goes as well as you hoped. But for now, Luke, goodbye.
Yeah, goodbye for me, and good luck, everyone. I think there's going to be a lot of money, as usual, on the lines for mini leagues, for the overall, for everything on the final day. There's going to be a lot of people behind sofas sweating, but ultimately, it's going to be so much fun because you can end up with life-changing amount of money, and that's why this game's really, really fun. So good luck out there to whoever gets it, and feel free to donate. You know, we are here. If we've helped you, by all means, send 5k our way. I'm joking, of course.
Well, good luck sending us 5k, please, and and goodbye.
See ya.